also some people, like Anna, it's one of the audience members. She's a young artist. I like to think this kind of our talk can inspire young artists. So that's how I grew up. And always my mom was interested in visual art, so she took me to the museum quite a bit. So that was a connection between the theater. I became a theater performer, and then I was always fascinated by visual art. One of them is origami, and then origami has such a connection between the science and math that fascinated me, and also the great connection between the fine arts, of course, that fascinates me. For example, you just kind of crease and make a paper crane, and if you unfold it, it's a crease pattern, and then you can take it from there. That's kind of fascination is in me. So the artist collaboration is great for me to be inspired. I kind of talked a lot about me, but what is your inspiration come from for your painting, for your artworks?
That's a big question.
Is that a big question? Is that very more like you did commercial art too?
No, not really. I mean, I've done a lot of graphic design work, mostly technical work.
And then when you just kind of do your own artwork, is that something? Let's say you dry out, and you just can't get any idea. Is there anything you try to dig so that maybe you get some idea?
Oh, like idea generation.
Yeah.
That's changed for me over the years because when I was younger, I was more of a conceptual artist. I actually did a lot of performance art when I was in my 20s. And my problem solving, the approach is the same, but the medium is a little different now. I mean, I always start with some kind of research to kind of immerse myself in the problem.
And I remember when you were doing this exhibit, you were so fascinated by the story. You kind of went into a great deal of the details of the story and characters.
When you said Alice in Wonderland, and I know you were really interested in the Mad Hatter himself as the primary character for this exhibit, but it's been so long since I read that, and I'm not a huge Disney fan. So I haven't seen those movies for years. So I wanted to reacquaint myself with it. So I listened to the audiobook first so that I didn't have any image associations with like the original Kuniko book. And then I started watching film adaptations, but not Disney adaptations. There was a silent film that I was really excited about from 1915 that was so creepy and very different.
The one we watched it together. Right?
No, we watched that was the Czech animator from I think it was the 80s, Jan Svankmajer,
who did the Metropolis, right?
Yeah, no, what was that? Faust.
Oh, Faust.
But I watched a bunch of other movies, and I watched a couple of documentaries also about Lewis Carroll as a person in that time period. And when I had started watching all this stuff, I was doing little drawings as I was listening to things. And originally, I was going to do like important scenes or objects that reappeared through the story. But then I did one drawing. I started with one of the characters because when we were watching the animation, I got all excited about the footmen because I think they're such funny characters. The fish and the frog that bring the mail that's the invitation to the queen's croquet party, and I just thought they're so funny because they wear little wigs and stuff. So I drew a couple, I drew those out and thought I should just do character portraits for all of the, as many important characters as I can instead of focusing on all these other things. So I threw out the first couple of things that I had started and just started to work on the characters.
I see that through those characters. She has, was it 12? No, 10.
I was hoping to do 12 because there are 12 chapters in the book,
right?
But I didn't manage to do that many. So
yeah. And then the process you did fascinated me because you are heavy on the resource and then just kind of get inspiration from that too. And then that inspired me to kind of, I did the hat and the Mad Hatters. There was an episode of, well, maybe documentary, saying that back then in England, the way they processed the hats felt was a poisonous mercury. And then the Mad Hatter was not going crazy for no reason. It was a toxic substance. He inhaled so much, so the hatters were crazy. Yeah, madness came with the hatters. So that piece of information inspired me a lot to get into it. And how about you, Vicki? When you are working on your painting, what was the kind of inspiration or the ideas?
For this exhibition, you came to me with the idea, and I thought, oh wow, yes, my work already sort of fits into it because I've already done characters that sort of coincide with a lot of characters in the book, and I could use a few paintings that I already have. And then I thought, well, you have such a beautiful space, large space for a large painting, that I would do one large painting that has some of the characters. So what inspired me was going out to the junk stores and coming across a hatter, or a rabbit with a stopwatch and a pocket watch, and the frog for the footman, and then I had that cookie jar, and I turned it into a Queen of Hearts. It had a jester's cap, but I changed it into a crown, and we're always eating things, cookies and things, so I put some pastries in it. I just thought they would look good, and so I am just inspired by objects from the past, especially toys, because they were made to be, to amuse children, and by the time I get hold of them and want to use them in my paintings, they're quite old, and the children who played with them are either old or dead. And I think that gives it sort of a creepy air, but I also like using the toys because I can arrange them. I spend a lot of time arranging my objects, but I can arrange them to tell stories. Now, I don't always tell stories, but I do like to have a story with my paintings and get across a message. I'm always wanting to get across a message, and I feel like our world, our earth is in crisis, and a lot of people are just walking around with their head in the clouds, and I like for people to be just a little bit uncomfortable when they look at my paintings. Sometimes, not all my paintings, but I just like them to evoke some thought, some pondering, like, and what does that mean? What's that about?
That has a bunch of layers of energy from your painting or the storytelling to the viewers. When you are just kind of, because I remember when you said, oh, I'm gonna do the big painting, and then it was so fast, you just kind of she got so fast, and then I think it was only a couple of days later I came to your place and it was already shaping up, and I was really stunned. Was it kind of intuitive that you had those objects?
Well, I had a few of them, and I went out and bought some others, and I just went looking for things that would evoke the mood of Alice in Wonderland to me. And a tea party, of course, and we had some gorgeous teacups that I'd been eyeing at the Sarasota Trading Company where I had my studio. And I brought those on, and that green pedestal was something I liked there for a long time. It seemed to be from the late 19th century or early 20th century. And
I'm kind of fascinated because we were about same generation. I mean, you are the youngest, but did you, when you were young, even when you were young, let's say 25 or 29 years old,
mm-hmm.
did you have that kind of intuition that this is it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my case, origami, right now, I do have I don't go on and on and on about this is not, this is not, this is not. I have a certain things, just like you said, going after something,
Mm-hmm.
and then I like to think I'm going after, but when I was younger, I didn't have this kind of stuff. I was very distracted by what is this about, and then what else is out there, and then am I doing the right thing? Is this gonna do this? And then I didn't know what I was going after. Does this happen to you as an artist, or did it happen? I mean, what I'm saying is, do you have much more vision compared to the younger days?
I can allow myself to focus more. Making a living has always been a distraction, and because of I guess this social consciousness, if you want to call it that, I became vegetarian and vegan quite young, and I had a career as a cookbook author, and so I've had to sort of fight for my time to do art. And it was always art that I wanted to do, but I've always felt compelled to also be of some sort of service in the world. And sometimes I wonder if art does that, and other times I say, of course it does. You know, art is as essential as breathing. But then there are times when I feel like I'm being maybe sort of selfish by doing just art. So I go back and forth with that, and I can get distracted easily. I work in a public spot, and people come around and talk to me, and it's easy to talk to people and lose my train of thought, and but then I get back to it. But I've always felt an urgency, though. Ever since I was very young, I've felt an urgency to accomplish something and to get something done, and I knew it was going to be somehow with art. And I still, even though I'm older now, I feel like I still haven't done it, and I'm still wanting to do it, and I'm still, thinking one of these days something is going to develop out of all of this that is
You kind of
more
believed in
than.
it? You kind of believed in it?
Yeah.
How about you, Sandra?
When I was younger, I used to do, I would say most of the work that I was doing was all about identity, representations of different parts of my identity, and really trying to sort a lot of stuff out that way. I'm old enough now that I've figured out as much of that as I'm going to, and I don't feel the need to explore that anymore.
Yeah.
So it is more about recording or how do I put it? Dead silence. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, I think I understand what you are trying to say. This is something I feel it in myself too. I had to explore so much when I was younger, but and then about identity and then representation of yourself or your art. We have today we have a group of people, and then most of them are artists. What do you think, Lori? Is that the same as you? Like when you were young and older, are you feel differently, or?
Yes, very much. Everything's changed in the process. It was all about the detail and making something look realistic. Now that doesn't matter anymore.
What is that something more conceptual or theme or something improvised or?
It was more about being a good draftsman, basically, just being able to copy something like I want and be able to make it look realistic and make it, for example, like a figure or a portrait, an object, to make it look really realistic. And I was really detail orientated. Now it just doesn't matter anymore. Not at all. Doesn't matter.
Isn't that great though? Because I think it's great. When I was young, there are so many times I wanted to quit. It doesn't pay me well, and it's so much competition. You know, I went to audition in New York, and I went to the theater auditions, and then rejection after rejection. I ended up doing my solo show, and luckily it clicked, so it worked. But till that moment, so many competition, and I just thought, no, this is too hard, and I wanna quit, right? And the traffic is too much. Everybody wanna get something, and then it's just like hundreds of people just going after one piece of pie. So that's what I felt. But somehow I continue to this moment, which is I'm in my 50s, and now I feel good about it. And it's almost like the young artist. I really want to say to them that do you feel this way? Like a young artist want to quit, but just keep on, because there's something light after the tunnel. Do you feel that way?
I kind of struggle with this right now because sometimes it's really hard for me to separate what I want to do and what other people's expectations of what I should do are. And sometimes I get really wrapped up in other people's expectations. And I forget about what's actually more important to me, which is maybe not as ambitious as what other people expect.
And then who is to say what is the right amount of the ambition or the aggression or whatever, the energy? Who is to say that is the right amount? If it's too much, it's too much. And then it's almost like it's just like nobody can tell me what's right, and then I can't tell myself either, but somehow we mature to this point and to the beauty in it. So now we were talking about.
I would like to say something about that. I think being an artist is almost like being gay. Either you are or you are not. And I have several few young students, and very gifted. I don't know if they'll end up becoming artists when they choose their career or not. But I don't think it's the easiest career, but I think if one is meant to be an artist, you're not happy when it's not happy unless they're being an artist. And I think if you can be happy in another career, you're better off doing it because it's a lot easier. But if you're not, then you are an artist, and you better not give up. You've got to keep at it.
The artist is such a broad identity.
It is, yeah. It can mean many different things, especially today.
Yeah.
Whether theater, performing arts, culinary arts even, but you can make a living with that more easily.
Okay, well then I'm gonna kind of switch to, because we have a nice idea about being an artist, and then now how about the media you guys do? My media is origami, and it's a paper, but origami world is changing. It's not only the paper these days. The paper already has many kinds, like a foil paper, pattern paper, rice paper, plastic paper, even Tyvek is a kind of paper. Tyvek is a plastic paper that is a waterproof, tear-proof, rip-proof, that is used for the construction. And now, how about fabric? Can we do the origami on it? How about the metal sheet? Can we do that? And the metal is heavy, you can't fold intricate way, but the artists and scientists are working on this. Now there's a way to do a complicated fold with a metal sheet. And how about this and that and that? It's changing and it's expanding. So it's really exciting. And our media is paper mainly, but now those different kind. And then also we use the paint quite a bit. And the combination between the, for example, tissue paper foil, which is just like a kitchen foil, and then sandwiched by two thin tissue paper makes a brilliant origami paper. And also I did several what do you call it? Gluing some other thicker paper so that big piece you can make, because when you are making big piece, your paper has to be thicker. When you are making smaller object, it can be very thin, but the bigger object, it has to be thick. So I use the glue and then I kind of put some papers together. And then also we use the UV, what was it name? UV shield.
Oh, it's something really fancy.
Fancy name.
Amanda helped name it. UV resistant something or reflective.
Reflective.
So it's more durable.
Durable. It's used for the window treatment. It's a printed paper. It's already printed, and when I saw that paper, when I saw that window treatment, I got so fascinated to make it. And then it comes with a black and white, which is perfect for our hats. So that's something we use. How about your media? Do you explore, or is there a certain favorite media and why you like it? I saw you using inks, was it?
Today I used India ink. For the things that I did here that are hanging on the wall, I used India ink, colored ink. I like Noodler's inks a lot because you can use them in fountain pens. It doesn't have the shellac in it that other inks have to gum up the mechanics.
Is that what makes that happen?
Yeah.
So they kind of mix well, is that what you're saying?
Well, I use them, but I don't mix them. I just use them in the same drawing. And also gouache. This was really the first time I spent a lot of time using gouache.
Yeah, you told me that I was trying to make the Cheshire cat's mouse from here to there, and then I needed a pink and then you gave me that paint.
Right?
Yeah.
I've always been a drawer. Always. Even when I was doing a lot of conceptual work, I still did a lot of drawing as documentation of processes that I was working out to get to that final, happening event. But I've done different, I've used different types of drawing media over the years, and even in the locations that I've worked at, the scales have changed. Like when I was living in New York, everything was very large and very vertical, and I was still doing identity work then. So I was actually doing embroidery on paper to do these really large drawings. And now that I'm here, the scales are smaller and they're more technically tighter, and I don't really sew anymore. I'm actually really doing more traditional drawing media. it could change. I mean, it could always change, but that's just what I've been working on the last few years. I really kind of wanted to get back to the basics of image making. So, and I think even the way that I've drawn has changed depending on how much printmaking I've been doing. It gets more graphic and more flat, I think, if I've been doing a lot of printmaking, which I do sometimes, carving and stuff.
What about you?
Well, I just do oil on canvas.
And then you use what kind of oil?
Well, I do use the aqua oil sometimes, which dries a little faster than the traditional oils, but everything else about them is the same. I mix it, I don't use a solvent, except to clean my brushes, and then I use a non-toxic citrus solvent. But I use linseed oil from the hardware store, or I use walnut oil. And if I want like an antiqued kind of look, like with these antique toy paintings, I choose the linseed oil because it sort of yellows more, and it gives a bit of a golden patina to the whole thing. And so it's just very traditional painting that I'm doing, traditional techniques, non-traditional subject matter. What I feel the real creativity of my work is the assemblage of the objects. And that's probably the most exciting, fun part. That and finishing it up, and I like the way it's going.
It's what you curate to put into them too,
Yeah.
I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I'm kind of fascinated about the difference of the oil. You said linseed oil is more like an antique look to it, yellowish, and then the walnut oil.
It does not tend to yellow as much. It's a
Okay.
little thinner,
Okay.
and it does not tend to yellow.
Okay.
And
And then you don't use acrylic?
I just find if I'm doing something that requires a hard edge or a real clean edge or an abstract, which I do occasionally for commission, I will use acrylic.
Okay.
But for actual, painting where I want to render something, oil is just so much easier, and it's easier to draw with just because it stays wet and I can mush it around. I can play with my composition until it's right. I don't have to, get it right or the first time, or, acrylic you can always paint over, but with oil you just, push it around and wipe it off if you don't like it. And I like working in oil. It's just an easy medium for me.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you guys like artist collaboration? Because this is our effort to work together. Did it work for you?
Oh, I would not have done this big painting, which I think is pretty cool. I'm very happy with it had it not been for you and the collaboration and the theme of the show. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Is it something that you think you would do again on your own? Say, take another book and do another representation of that book as a different painting?
I don't know. I had to be told to do it, and then I ran with it. I don't think I would have thought of it on my own, because I guess I'm always like out. But if I start to get a bit stale, I go to the junk stores and I find myself a new toy. And with the new toy comes more inspiration. But Kuniko said something about for Earth Day maybe doing a vegan themed show, and it's like, yeah. And then I went to a junk store and I found the perfect thing for it. So it's like, an idea comes and the objects come, and I'm trying to get away from only toys and add other objects, food or kitsch or even classical objects. So it's not only toys, because with toys people always think, oh, you're doing art for children. No, it will give children nightmares for the most part. How about you, Sandra?
Would you do it? Did you like it? The collaboration.
Her nightmarish painting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then we have that dark side too.
And yeah, Sandra's work works, I think you chose great artists that go together.
Well, I think you picked us too because of the scale difference, which is kind of, it goes right along with the book.
And then I didn't expect, I didn't know what to expect. It's just I like collaboration idea because usually I can do more than I can do. And as an outcome is always that way.
It pushed us.
Yeah, it pushes me. So I like it, and I think we're gonna do it. How did you feel, Sandra?
I really enjoyed it. It made me think about telling a story, and and I'm really glad I didn't look at any of the Disney stuff because it really probably would have colored what I did. I take a lot of photographs all the time. I'm constantly taking photographs of things that I see, if they're interesting, or like, that's an interesting landscape, or like, look at how empty this street is, or oh my gosh, there's a turtle over there. Like, I'm constantly taking pictures of things all the time and dumping them to my computer.
And
So-
we kind of talked about that quite a bit. Like you said, look at this, or you said this is interesting, and then I didn't know what it was, and you gave me the idea, a bunch of them.
When I had started to think I should do these character portraits instead, I started going through all of my photos so I could pull things out and kind of piece together these little images. So that was kind of fun for me because I don't really get to go through that stuff as much as I should.
Okay. Well, I think we were having a good time talking, but is there any question you guys have?
Well, I would like to know what celebrities have bought your paintings or your illustrations, stuff like that. You spoke a little bit about it.
Yeah, I made a list. You're talking to me?
Oh,
Yeah, it's not me.
I pushed it a little far, Let's see, who has, let me try to remember. Well, I know at one point, I had a painting that hung on the 16e arrondissement in Paris, next to a Toulouse-Lautrec, and it was purchased by the largest gourmet mushroom dealer in the world at the time. I also once sold 4 paintings to Clay Morton from the Morton Salt family. A filmmaker named Patrice Grandpere bought one of my plywood cutouts that I used to do, and he was quite well known, a French filmmaker who died recently. And I was very pleased to have one of my pieces in his office. He did a film called L'Enfant Lion. It was his first very well received film, and it was one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen, just an amazing film. One of my old buddies is the grandson of Max Ernst, and he's got one of my pieces. Let's see. Any others? There might be others I can't think right now. But
and also, I know you said earlier that you want to tell people that these are not for children. You don't make them intentionally for children. Is there any kind of other myth you want to dispel about your artwork, like?
Basically they're not really for children. We got to say that. I mean, they can be for children. Children do sometimes like creepy. Children love creepy, I think. But sometimes, but some kids might be, a little disturbed by the creepiness of them. And I don't really set out to make them creepy. but they
That's
just
people's perception.
yeah, and they end up looking a little creepy. I mean, I think that's what I'm attracted to. I'm attracted to these toys that are old enough to have that little bit of a creepy quality to them. Because a new toy, it's like people are always saying, "Oh, you should paint blah blah." You know, it's you know, my kids have one of those. It's fabulous, and I'm like,
Doesn't quite have the character.
yeah, it doesn't have the character. And you know, these old toys were made by artists and artisans. That's one thing I find so interesting. I mean, these were designed by someone, you know, and that's, I think culturally it's interesting for that, you know, who designed this thing? And they weren't made in the huge quantities that, you know, that most of the things I buy have been mass produced, but some of them are so odd that I'm sure there weren't that many of them made.
It's kind of like a catalog of like the relics of the past.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you wanted to kind of inform the public about your art that they might misperceive or you really want them to understand? Straightforward. I like that.
I was gonna say, I haven't had anybody buy my work that's been famous, but I've traded work with people that are interesting.
Tell me a little bit about that. That's really interesting.
I used to do a lot of postal correspondence with, there's a network of artists, it's an international network that grew out of Ray Johnson's New York Correspondence School in the 60s, and it's still active today. And I've corresponded with some people in that network, and one person who I've sent a lot of mail to and gotten a lot of mail from in return is a man, I think it's a man named Ryusuke Kohen, who lives in Japan, and he actually just had a show at the Smithsonian.
Oh wow!
Last year, the year before, I think.
Very cool.
I have a whole box full of his stuff at my house. Trying to think of, there's another man that's in that network who actually was really close to Ray Johnson that has sent me mail a couple of times. I mean, postal art is a whole genre unto itself, where people make, you know, collages specifically for someone, or does little drawings, or some people are just into stamps, and they make their own postage stamps. I mean, they're not legal to use as postage, but artist stamps, people collect those.
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy. People are into making their own rubber stamps. Like, you know, it's a very interesting form of printmaking that people have kind of caught on to.
Remember those books, Griffin and Sabine?
I love those.
Oh, I love that one.
I love those.
Yeah. Okay, well, I love you guys and your work, and like Griffith and Sabine. And anything at the end would you like to add? Otherwise, this is a wrap. Okay, great. Thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you more at the Origami Air Art Studio. Please keep an eye on our website, origamiair.com, Facebook, Instagram, and anything else I didn't say? We got it? Okay.